In their book, Stories of the Spirit, the teachers Jack Kornfield and Christina Feldman tell a story that some of you might know. A family goes out for dinner one night at a restaurant, and the waitress comes to the table to ask them what they want. The parents immediately know and give their order. The 5-year-old daughter stands up and quickly says, "I'll have a hot dog, French fries, and a Coke." Her father stands up and says, "Oh, no, you won't. She will have meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and a cup of milk." The waitress looks at the little girl and says, "So, honey, what do you want on that hot dog?" When she leaves, the parents, silent and stunned, look at their daughter, who replies to them, "She thinks I'm real." I grew up with a very caring and attentive family, but I can tell you that part of my childhood memory is seeing just how busy adults looked. I can remember adults taller than me rushing around very quickly, always with somewhere to go and something to do, and the people who stopped long enough to pretend or realize that I were real were very important to me. As a child, I remember feeling that a large part of the adult world felt that children were interruptions to the really important things. I knew something was important because either it was happening in another room, or it was locked away in a cabinet, it was put just out of reach where my hands couldn't touch it, or I knew it was important because I needed to be quiet in order for it to happen. And it is a day like today, and a story like the one that we're about to enter, that reminds me that far too often I've now taken on the role of the busy adult in somebody's life. That I have a very real child, and that with him and others, I'm sure I am the one rushing by with something important to do that's happening in another room, out of reach, or something that children need to be quiet for it to happen at all. During Christmas time, even though it's designed to do just the opposite, I watch us rush past one another. Just because some of us in the room are older doesn't mean that we don't still struggle with having people pause long enough to see that we're real. So many of us, myself included, have begun to live out the habit of the illusion that human beings are interruptions to the really important things in my life. Deadlines and projects, or a moment of quiet somewhere. The story that we're about to enter is one of a child who was an incredibly important interruption to life itself for the people who lived near and with him. And I think that my favorite people in the entire Christmas story are the shepherds. Here are these guys doing their job in the middle of the night when all of a sudden the angel of the Lord appears to them. They don't expect it, and their first instinct is to be absolutely, completely freaked out. The text says they were sore afraid. When the angel calms them down, they are informed that the Messiah has been born. The Messiah, the anointed one, is sitting wrapped in cloth in a manger held by his parents. And what the shepherds want to do is see him. This is the Messiah, right? The Messiah, the anointed one that Reverend Cantor spoke about last week. The Jewish people living for generations in occupied territory under harsh foreign rule told story after story about the fact that one day somebody would show up and fix things. The Messiah. These shepherds had undoubtedly sat at Passover meals for many years of their life, overhearing their grandmothers and grandfathers and aunts and uncles argue about the Messiah, whether and how he would appear. And now he's born. Their response is, let's go see what's happened. They want to see him. And that's all that Luke's book says they do. The text does not say that they say anything, that they bring gifts, that they immediately fall on their knees, or that they tweet or update their Facebook status or take pictures of the child to make sure people knew they saw him. All they do is see the child. I can imagine a young Jesus years after being told the story of his birth night and saying, "They thought I was real." The story doesn't have to be supernatural or magical or even true to be real. The world does stop when we see each other. And so today we enter into the story. And we have the opportunity in just a few minutes to give the people in this congregation, the families and the children, the gift of being seen. Maybe they will be seen for a few seconds without being viewed through the lens of a camera or a phone. We get to pause and do nothing else but see them. We have nothing more important to do. We have nowhere more important to be, nowhere to rush off to. Nothing needs to be put on the countertops out of the reach of the children. Nothing needs to be locked away in another room, and no child has to be quiet in order for this important thing to happen. Exactly the opposite, in fact. So I invite you to stop and pause and see our children and families. Hopefully we're the kind of community where in a few years they will remember days like these and us and say, "They thought I was real." Welcome. Amen.